The bass thumped through the gym walls like a heartbeat gone wild, colorful lights slicing through the haze of teenage sweat and cheap perfume. Laughter mixed with the pop of balloons and the clink of plastic cups, but in the corner shadows, Tessa Parker stood frozen, her prom dress, a simple blue number she'd picked out with hesitant excitement, now feeling like a trap. A group of older boys, their faces flushed from too much punch and bravado, had cornered her near the punch bowl. One of them, broad-shouldered with a smirk that screamed entitlement, leaned in too close, his hand brushing her arm in a way that made her skin crawl. "Come on, loosen up," he slurred, the others chuckling like it was all a game. Tessa's heart hammered. She wasn't one for scenes, never had been. But this wasn't right. Her phone burned in her palm as she typed the message, fingers trembling. "Dad, come get me. I'm scared." She hit send, the whoosh echoing louder in her mind than the music. Miles away, in the dim glow of his workshop on the edge of town, Owen Sledge Parker wiped grease from his hands on a rag that had seen better days. The air smelled of oil and leather, the kind of scent that clung to him like an old friend. At 45, Owen was a mountain of a man, his arms etched with tattoos from a life of roads and regrets. Faded ink of a promise sworn in a desert foxhole 20 years back, beside a brother in arms who'd never come home. He'd traded the chaos of the Iron Promise crew for quieter nights, raising Tessa alone after her mother walked out, leaving only echoes and a locket with a photo of better times. The buzz of his phone cut through the hum of the cooling engine on his Harley, pulling him from the shadows. He glanced at the screen, the words hitting him like a punch to the gut. His daughter, his anchor, the one good thing he'd fought to protect, scared. Not annoyed, not late-night whimsy, scared. Owen didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys, the metal jangling like a warning bell, and strode to the garage. The bike roared to life under him, a thunderous growl that vibrated through his bones, headlights piercing the midnight dark like twin eyes of resolve. The road unwound before him, asphalt slick with dew under the moon's pale watch, wind whipping at his scooter as he pushed the throttle. Tessa's face flashed in his mind, those wide eyes at her first bike ride, the way she'd hugged him after every school play, trusting him to make the world safe. He'd promised her that years ago, when she was small and the nights were long. "No matter what, kid, I've got you." That promise, buried under layers of lost sleep and mechanics' calluses, surged back now, unbreakable. By the time he hit the school lot, tires screeching on gravel, Owen knew this ride wasn't just about pickup. It was about reminding the world, and himself, that some lines you don't cross. The gym doors burst open as Owen strode in, his boots echoing like gunshots over the fading music. The DJ faltered, the track skipping as heads turned. Light strobed across his weathered face. Beard streaked with silver, eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk spotting prey. Whispers rippled. "Who's that?" "Looks like trouble." Teens parted like the Red Sea, their painted faces a mix of curiosity and unease. Owen's presence filled the space, 6'4" of quiet fury, wrapped in denim and chains. The patch on his back, Iron Promise, faint but unmistakable to those who knew. He spotted Tessa across the room, her shoulders hunched, the boys still hovering too near. One of them straightened, puffing his chest, but Owen's gaze locked on, unblinking, the air thickening with unspoken threat. "Tessa!" he called, voice low and steady, cutting through the hush. She looked up, relief flooding her features as she pushed past the group, weaving toward him. The boy who'd touched her arm stepped forward, mouth opening for some smart remark, but Owen raised a hand, not in anger, but command. "You touch my daughter again, and you'll learn what a real promise means." The words hung heavy, laced with the weight of battles fought and oaths kept. The crowd murmured, phones emerging to capture the moment, but no one moved. Tessa reached him, burying her face in his chest, the scent of his leather jacket grounding her like home. Outside, under the stars that wheeled overhead, Owen helped her onto the bike, the engine idling like a patient beast. "What happened in there, kid?" he asked, handing her the spare helmet, its visor scratched from years of faithful rides. Tessa hesitated, the night's fear still clinging. "They wouldn't leave me alone, Dad. Said stuff. Made me feel trapped." Owen nodded, the road ahead blurring slightly in his vision, not from speed but the fire building inside. He'd seen traps before, in war zones and back-alley deals, and he knew this wasn't just boys being boys. There was a shadow to it, a whisper of something organized, the kind that preyed on the vulnerable under festive lights. As they pulled away, the gym shrinking in the mirrors, Owen felt the old crew stirring in his blood. He hadn't called them in years, not since the last ride that cost him a friend. But Tessa's text had cracked the seal. The Iron Promise wasn't just a club, it was family, forged in fire and loyalty, waiting for the word that would bring them thundering back. Dawn was hours off, but already Owen could sense the shift. A father's instinct turning into a force that would ride until justice rolled in like thunder. Tessa clung to him, the wind carrying away her tears, and in that moment under the vast night sky, their bond felt unbreakable, a promise reborn on two wheels. The town lights faded behind them, but Owen's mind raced ahead. He'd drop Tessa home, make sure she was safe, then dig into what or who had put that fear in her eyes. Little did he know, the threads of this night wove back to secrets buried deep, ones that would test every scar on his soul and rally the brothers he'd left behind. For now, the road was theirs. A ribbon of redemption stretching into the unknown. Word count 872. The rumble of the Harley softened to a low purr as Owen eased off the throttle, turning onto the quiet street that led to their modest ranch-style home on the outskirts of Willow Creek. Streetlights cast long shadows over cracked sidewalks, the kind of sleepy neighborhood where secrets simmered behind drawn curtains. Tessa's arms tightened around his waist, her cheek pressed against the worn leather of his back, the vibration of the bike a steady anchor in the chaos of her thoughts. The wind had dried her tears, but the chill lingered, seeping into her bones like the memory of those hands too close, those voices too insistent. Owen glanced in the rearview mirror, catching her reflection, pale, eyes distant, the spark of prom night joy extinguished. He pulled into the driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires like brittle bones. Killing the engine, the sudden silence amplified the night's weight, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the tick of cooling metal. Owen swung his leg off, helping Tessa down with a gentleness that belied his size, his calloused hand steady on her elbow. Inside. "Kid, let's get you something warm." She nodded, clutching the helmet like a shield, her heels clicking unevenly on the porch steps. The front door creaked open to the familiar scent of pine cleaner and faint motor oil, Owen's world, safe and unyielding. He flicked on the kitchen light, the bulb humming to life, casting a warm glow over the scarred wooden table where they'd shared countless late-night talks. Tessa sank into a chair, her dress pooling around her like spilled water, while Owen busied himself at the stove, filling a mug with hot chocolate from the pot he kept ready for such nights. Steam rose in lazy curls, carrying the rich, comforting aroma that always chased away her storms. He slid the mug across to her, then pulled up a stool, his knees cracking like old leather. "Talk to me, Tessa, from the beginning. Who were those boys? What did they say?" His voice was gravelly, measured, the tone he'd used in debriefs after patrols, drawing out truths without pressure. She sipped, the warmth spreading through her, loosening the knot in her chest. "It started okay, Dad. Dancing, laughing with friends. Then this guy, Jake Harlan, I think his name is, came over with his buddies, popular types, you know, football stars. They offered me a drink, but it tasted funny, sweet, but off. Owen's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching under the silver-streaked beard. Harlan. The name rang a faint bell, tied to whispers in town about the mayor's son. The kind of kid who skated on privilege while others paid the price. Funny how. Did they slip something in it? Tessa shook her head quickly, but her eyes darted away. I don't know. I didn't drink much, but they kept pushing, crowding me by the punch bowl, Jake said. He said I'd look better without the dress on, that I was wasting the night being shy. His friends laughed, like it was a joke, but their hands, they grabbed my wrist, pulled me toward the back door. I said no, Dad. I yelled it. But the music was so loud, and everyone just kept dancing. No one stopped them. The words hung in the air, heavy as exhaust fumes, painting pictures Owen didn't want but couldn't ignore. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, the tattoos on his forearms shifting like ghosts, the coiled serpent from his iron promise days, symbol of oaths that bound tighter than blood. He'd seen this script before, in the underbelly of cities he'd rolled through, where power masked as playthings preyed on the young and unguarded. You did right texting me, he said softly, reaching across to squeeze her hand. Proud of you for that. No one's going to touch you again. Not while I breathe. Tessa met his gaze, the fear ebbing into something fiercer. Trust, the kind forged in a father's quiet vigilance. What are you going to do? Call the cops? Owen's laugh was short, bitter like the bite of bad coffee. Cops in this town, half of them owe favors to the Harlans. Mayor's got the sheriff in his pocket. No, this calls for something older, something real. He stood, pacing the linoleum floor, the floorboards groaning under his weight. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, each second a reminder of promises kept and broken. 20 years ago, in the scorching sands of a forgotten conflict, he'd sworn to his squad leader, Big Mike, the heart of Iron Promise, to always stand for the innocent, to ride against the tide when the law turned blind. Mike hadn't made it back, his last breath a rasp of "keep the promise" sledge. Owen had walked away from the club after that, burying the leathers in the garage, focusing on Tessa to honor the man in his own way. But tonight the old fire crackled to life, embers stirred by a father's rage. He pulled out his phone, the screen glowing like a beacon in the dim kitchen, scrolling to a number he hadn't dialed in years. Jack's Rook Harlan, no relation to the boy, thank God, a brother from the early rides, now running a garage upstate. The line rang twice before Jax picked up, voice thick with sleep but alert. Sledge, that you? Been too damn long. Owen cut to it, no preamble. Need the crew, Rook. My girl's in trouble. Some punks at her prom. Harlan's kid leading the pack. Touched her, scared her bad. Town's corrupt. Can't trust badges. A pause, then Jax's low whistle. Iron Promise rides for family. Where and when? Owen glanced at Tessa, her mug empty now, eyes wide with a mix of worry and wonder. Dawn, meet at the old mill road. Bring who you can. We're ending this quiet, but firm. No blood if we can help it, just truth and consequences. Jax chuckled, the sound like grinding gears. Copy that. Brothers'll be there. Promise holds. Hanging up, Owen turned back to Tessa, the weight of the call settling like dew on his shoulders. Get some rest, kid. Tomorrow we make it right. She nodded, rising to hug him, her head barely reaching his chest. Thanks, Dad. You're my hero. The words pierced deeper than any blade, a reminder of why he fought, not for glory, but for the light in her eyes. As she headed upstairs, footsteps fading on the creaky stairs, Owen stepped onto the porch, the night air cool and star-pricked. He lit a cigarette, the flame flickering briefly, smoke curling toward the heavens like a silent vow. The road ahead twisted with shadows. Jake Harlan's crowd wasn't just rowdy teens. Rumors tied them to bigger games, parties that blurred into danger, backed by daddies with deep pockets and deeper secrets. Owen exhaled, watching the embers glow. He'd ride into that dawn, not as a lone wolf, but with the thunder of chosen kin, fulfilling the oath that had carried him through hell and home. The first hints of grey touched the horizon as Owen settled into a porch chair, phone in hand, mapping the paths that would lead to reckoning. Tessa's fear had ignited a chain reaction, pulling threads from his past into the present, weaving a tapestry of loyalty that no corruption could unravel. In the quiet before the storm, he felt Mike's presence, a whisper on the breeze. Keep the promise. And he would, on two wheels, under the rising sun, for the daughter who made it all mean something. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The first blush of dawn crept over the horizon like a hesitant promise, painting the sky in streaks of rose and gold that filtered through the porch slats. Owen sat motionless in the old Adirondack chair, the cigarette long since burned to ash between his fingers, its faint, acrid scent mingling with the earthy dew rising from the yard. The neighborhood stirred faintly, a dog barking in the distance, the soft hum of an early commuter car. But Willow Creek held its breath, as if sensing the gathering storm. Owen's mind replayed the night's fragments. Tessa's trembling voice, the Harlan name dropping like a stone in still water, the weight of Jax's agreement echoing in his ears. He crushed the butt under his boot, the grit grinding into the wood, and rose with a purpose that straightened his spine. Time to gear up. Inside, the house was quiet, save for the muffled rhythm of Tessa's breathing from upstairs. Owen moved like a shadow through the kitchen, pouring black coffee into a chipped mug, the steam rising sharp and bitter. He sipped it standing, eyes on the window where the light strengthened, chasing away the night's veil. The phone buzzed once. A text from Jax, rolling out. 20 brothers en route. Hold the line. Owen's chest tightened, a mix of relief and the old ache. Iron Promise wasn't the wild pack it once was. Age and loss had tempered them into something steadier, guardians more than warriors. But the call had answered, blood to blood, oath to oath. He pocketed the phone and headed to the garage, the door groaning open on rusty hinges to reveal his sanctuary. Walls lined with tools gleaming under a bare bulb, the Harley waiting like a faithful steed, and in the corner, a duffel half buried under tarps, the one holding remnants of his club life. He tugged it free, dust motes dancing in the air like fireflies at dusk. Inside, a fresh couter, the leather still supple, the Iron Promise patch stitched bold across the back, a clenched fist around a broken chain, symbol of freedom earned through unbreakable bonds. Owen shrugged it on, the weight settling familiar, like slipping into an old skin. Memories flooded. Dusty roads in the southwest, the roar of engines drowning out artillery echoes. Big Mike's laugh booming over a campfire as they swore to protect their own, no matter the cost. Mike's face, scarred and grinning, had been the glue, his absence the fracture that sent Owen retreating to this quiet life. But Tessa's text had mended the break, pulling him back. He zipped the bag, slinging it over his shoulder, and checked the bike, tires firm, chain oiled, ready for the ride that would test if promises could outlast rust. By the time he stepped outside, the sun had crested, bathing the driveway in warm light that glinted off the chrome. Tessa appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from fitful sleep, wrapped in an oversized sweatshirt that swallowed her frame. "Dad? You're leaving already?" Her voice carried the fragility of dawn, eyes searching his for reassurance. Owen turned, softening the hard lines of his face with a half smile. "Just meeting some old friends. We'll sort this, kid. Stay inside, lock the doors. Call if anything feels off." She nodded, stepping closer to hug him fiercely, the scent of her shampoo, vanilla and innocence, cutting through the garage's oil tang. "Be careful. I don't want you getting hurt because of me." He held her a beat longer, hand on her back. Never because of you. For you, always. Releasing her, he mounted the bike, the engine coughing to life with a throaty rumble that vibrated through the ground. Tessa watched from the porch as he pulled away, her figure shrinking in the mirror until the curve of the road swallowed her. The old mill road lay a few miles out, a forgotten stretch of cracked asphalt winding through overgrown fields and skeletal silos, relics of Willow Creek's fading industrial heart. Owen arrived first, the sun now climbing higher, casting long shadows that danced like spectres. He killed the engine, the silence amplifying the whisper of wind through tall grass. Minutes ticked by, each one building the knot in his gut, not fear, but the gravity of what this rally meant. Then a low thunder grew on the horizon, swelling into a symphony of Harleys, the air pulsing with their approach. They crested the rise like a rolling wave. 20 bikes, riders in weathered leathers, faces etched with miles and memories. Jax led, his greying ponytail whipping in the breeze, pulling up beside Owen with a nod that spoke volumes. "Sledge, good to see you in the saddle again." The crew dismounted in a loose circle, engines ticking down to quiet. Faces Owen knew, Rusty with his perpetual squint from desert sun, Lena the only sister in the pack, her arms inked with roses and thorns, a medic from their service days, and new ones, younger but carrying the same fire. Handshakes turned to backslaps, the camaraderie thick as fog, laced with unspoken questions. Jax lit a smoke, passing one to Owen. "Lay it out, brother. What's the play?" Owen leaned against his bike, the metal warm under his palms, and recounted the night. The text, the gym confrontation, Tessa's words about the punch, the grabs, the laughter that masked something darker. Harlan's boy and his crew, not just kids horsing around. Town talk says they've got a pattern, parties that turn sour, girls walking away changed, daddies covering tracks with influence. Mayor Harlan runs this place like his playground. Cops look the other way. Murmurs rippled through the group, nods of grim understanding. Rusty spat into the dirt. "Seen it before. Power breeds monsters. We ride in, talk to the kid, get the truth out. No fists unless they swing first." Lena crossed her arms, her voice steady as a surgeon's. "And the girl? We protect her too. This ain't just your fight, Sledge. It's ours." Owen met their eyes, the weight of their loyalty settling like armor. "Appreciate it. We start at the Harlan place, Mayor's estate on the hill. Quiet approach, hear him out. If he's clean, we walk. If not..." He trailed off, the implication clear. Promises demanded justice, not vengeance. Jax clapped his shoulder. "Iron holds. Let's roll." As they mounted up, the engines igniting in unison, a deafening chorus that shook the earth, the road ahead shimmered with heat haze. Owen took point, wind tearing at his face, the sun beating down like a forge. The crew fanned out behind, a phalanx of resolve, cutting through the morning light. Willow Creek's edges blurred past, farms giving way to manicured lawns, the illusion of order cracking under scrutiny. Owen's thoughts turned inward, to the scars hidden under his shirt, one from shrapnel, another from a bar fight over a wrong he'd righted, the reminders that life was a series of choices, each binding tighter. Tessa's face fueled him, her trust a beacon. They weren't storming castles, they were upholding the quiet code that separated men from shadows. The Harlan estate loomed as they crested the final rise, a sprawling mock mansion of white columns and iron gates, the kind built on taxpayer whispers. Bikes growled to a halt at the perimeter, dust settling like a veil. Owen dismounted first, the crew fanning out, eyes sharp. A security light flickered on prematurely, but no alarms yet. He approached the gate, chain link cold under his grip, and pressed the buzzer. Static crackled. Then a voice, clipped, wary, "State your business." Owen's reply was even, carrying the rumble of roads travelled. "Owen Parker, hear about my daughter and your boy, Jake. We need to talk." A pause stretched, heavy with calculation, before the gate buzzed open. As they rolled in, the house's facade cracked a smile of welcome. But Owen saw the shadows lurking, the real battle beginning not with words, but with the truths they would unearth. The promise pulsed in his veins, drawing them forward into the lion's den. The gravel drive crunched under the tires, like teeth grinding in the morning light. The Iron Promise crew, rolling in formation past the estate's manicured hedges and marble fountains that gurgled mockingly serene. Owen led the pack, his Harley purring low as they halted in a loose semicircle before the grand oak doors, engines cutting off one by one in a fading cascade of thunder. Dust hung in the air, golden motes catching the sun's rays, while the house loomed, its white facade pristine, windows like watchful eyes reflecting the intruders. Jax flanked Owen's left, his bike's chrome glinting like a blade, the others dismounting with the quiet efficiency of men who'd faced worse than a politician's porch. No revving for show. This was precision, a statement etched in leather and resolve. Owen swung off, boots hitting the ground with a solid thud that echoed his heartbeat. The air carried the faint tang of clipped grass and privilege, a far cry from the oil-slicked garages he knew. He adjusted his cooter, the patch's fist emblem a silent oath against the estate's opulence. Tessa's words echoed in his mind. They grabbed my wrist, pulled me, fueling the fire without letting it blaze wild. Behind him, Rusty scanned the perimeter, hand resting easy on his belt, while Lena's eyes narrowed at the security cameras blinking to life overhead. "Fancy cage," she muttered, voice low and edged with disdain. Jax nodded, spitting to the side. "Birds like Harlan don't fly free, they just build bigger perches." The front door swung open before Owen could knock, revealing a butler in starched white, mid-50s, face pinched like overripe fruit, who eyed the group with the disdain of a man who'd seen riffraff before. "Mr. Harlan is expecting you," he said, tone clipped as a slammed gate, stepping aside with reluctance. Owen led the way inside, the crew following in measured steps, their boots leaving faint dirt trails on the polished marble foyer. Crystal chandeliers dangled overhead, scattering light like shattered promises, and the air hummed with the subtle whir of air conditioning, cool and artificial. Walls lined with oil portraits of stern ancestors stared down, as if judging the intrusion. Owen's senses sharpened, the faint scent of cigar smoke lingering, the distant clink of glass from deeper in the house, every detail, a thread in the web they aimed to unravel. They were ushered into a sunlit study, bookshelves groaning under leather-bound tomes that likely gathered more dust than wisdom. Mayor Harlan rose from a high-backed desk, a silver-haired fox in a tailored suit, his smile practiced and thin as newsprint. At his side stood Jake, slouched in a chair, 17 and already wearing the world like a crown, Letterman jacket slung over the armrest, eyes flicking defiance mixed with unease. The boy straightened as the bikers entered, his flush from last night replaced by a pallor that spoke of interrupted sleep. Harlan extended a hand, manicured and steady. "Mr. Parker, I presume. And, friends. This is quite the delegation for a school matter." His voice dripped honey over gravel, but Owen caught the undercurrent, the calculation of a man used to bending truths. Owen ignored the hand, standing tall, his shadow stretching across the Persian rug like a challenge. "Not here for tea, Harlan, here for answers. Your boy and his crew cornered my daughter at prom, touched her, scared her. She texted me scared." The words landed heavy, the room's air thickening as Jax and the others fanned out subtly, a living wall of loyalty. Jake shifted, mouth opening in protest. "It was nothing, man, just messing around." But Harlan silenced him with a raised palm, eyes never leaving Owen's. "Boys will be boys, Parker. Prom's a rite of passage. No harm meant. Jake here's a good kid. Captain of the team, future at state. Surely we can resolve this without..." Theatrics. He gestured to the crew, a dismissive wave that ignited a spark in Rusty's jaw. Owen stepped closer, the desk a barrier he could vault if needed, but restraint held him. The promise to Tessa, to Mike, demanded words first, fists only as echo. Theatrics? That's what you call it when a girl feels trapped. When drinks taste off and hands grab without asking? I know the stories, Harlan. Parties that end with girls changed. Daddies like you sweeping it under the rug with donations and deals. Willow Creek's your kingdom, but my daughter's off limits. The mayor's smile faltered, a crack in the facade, as Jake bolted up. She was flirting, everyone saw. Your biker show's embarrassing her more than we did. Lena's laugh cut sharp, low. Kid, we've seen real embarrassment. Yours is just starting. Harlan leaned on the desk, knuckles whitening, the veneer slipping. You think you can roll in here with your motorcycle gang and intimidate me? I own this town. Sheriff, council, the works. One call, and you're all trespassing vagrants. But Owen saw it. The flicker in his eyes, the sweat beading at his temple. This wasn't just paternal defense. It was fear of exposure, threads pulling at a larger tapestry. Owen pulled out his phone, screen glowing with Tessa's text, holding it like evidence in a courtroom of honor. Call 'em, but truth rides faster than favors. We talk to Jake alone, get his side clean, or we take this public, every whisper, every girl who's walked away silent. Iron Promise doesn't forget. The standoff stretched, seconds ticking like a fuse, the study's light shifting as clouds passed the sun, casting fleeting shadows. Jake glanced at his father, plea in his eyes, but Harlan's resolve cracked first. Fine, talk, but this stays here. He nodded to the butler, who escorted Jake to an adjoining room, the door clicking shut behind them. Owen followed, the crew holding position, Jax's nod a silent, "We've got your back." Inside the smaller den, panelled in dark wood that smelled of polish and secrets, Jake slumped onto a leather couch, bravado crumbling. Owen sat across, not towering, but present, voice steady as an engine idle. "No games, son. What really happened? The punch? Who spiked it, and why her?" Jake's hands trembled, rubbing his knees, the weight of his father's empire pressing down. "It wasn't. I didn't mean... Dad's friends, they supply stuff for parties. Makes it fun, you know. But Tessa, she said no, and we pushed, thought it'd loosen her up. Everyone does it." The confession spilled, halting at first, then rushing like a breached dam. Names of other boys, hints of coercion from higher up, the mayor's arrangements to keep complaints quiet. Owen listened, the pieces fitting. Not isolated idiocy, but a pattern protected by power, preying on trust under festive lights. Rage simmered, but Owen channeled it into questions, drawing out details without accusation, the boy's voice breaking on regrets unspoken. Emerging after 20 minutes, Owen's face was stone, the truth a blade honed sharp. Harlan waited, arms crossed, but the air had shifted, charged with the inevitability of reckoning. "We're done here," Owen said, voice carrying to the crew. "But this isn't over. Jake's coming clean, to the girls, to the school. And you, Harlan, step down from the shadows, or we ride the story out." The mayor's retort died on his lips as the bikers moved as one, boots echoing retreat. Outside, engines roared back to life, the convoy pulling away from the estate, dust billowing like a parting curse. Owen rode in the lead, wind stinging his eyes, the confession burning in his chest, a step toward justice, but the road twisted deeper, toward confrontations that would test the promise's core. Back on the open stretch, Jax pulled alongside, shouting over the roar. "Got what we needed." Owen nodded, the sun high now, baking the asphalt. "Enough to start unraveling, but Tessa needs to know she's safe, for good." The crew thundered on, a force unbound, loyalty weaving them tighter against the corruption ahead. In the rear view, the estate shrank, but its shadows lingered, promising a moral storm on the horizon. If this story's gripping your heart like it is mine, hit that like button below. It helps spread these tales of quiet courage far and wide. The sun hung high over Willow Creek like a relentless judge, its rays baking the asphalt into shimmering waves as the Iron Promise convoy cut through the midday haze. Owen led the pack, his Harley slicing the wind with a steady growl, the confession from Jake Harlan still echoing in his ears like a poorly tuned engine, halting admissions of spiked drinks, pressured nights, and a father's hand guiding the cover-ups. Dust trailed behind them, a gritty banner marking their path from the estate's polished gates back toward the heart of town. Jax rode close on his flank, the two bikes sinking in rhythm, a silent conversation in throttle and lean. The crew stretched out in formation, 20 strong, their leathers creaking under the heat, faces set with the quiet determination of men who'd traded chaos for purpose. Owen's mind churned, piecing the boys' words into a larger shadow, not just one prom gone wrong, but a web spun across parties, school events, even quiet weekends at the lake. Girls like Tessa targeted for their freshness, their trust, then silenced by whispers of influence. Harlan's arrangements weren't vague. Jake had named suppliers, shadowy figures tied to the mayor's campaign donors, and worse, a sheriff's deputy who'd looked the other way more than once. The road blurred under his tires, but Owen's focus sharpened on home, Tessa waiting, her world still fragile from the night's fracture. He'd promised her safety, and that oath intertwined with Big Mike's ghost demanded more than words now. It called for roots pulled up, light cast into corners long dark. They veered onto the familiar street, engines downshifting to a low rumble that announced their arrival like thunder rolling in slow. The ranch house came into view, its porch bathed in afternoon gold, Tessa's silhouette visible through the screen door, pacing, arms wrapped tight around herself. She froze as the bikes pulled up, gravel spitting under brakes, the sudden quiet amplifying her sharp intake of breath. Owen killed his engine first, swinging off with a nod to the crew. "Hold here, give me a minute with her." Jax tipped his head, the group dismounting loosely, forming a respectful perimeter, Rusty leaning against a fence post, Lena scanning the quiet block with medic's eyes, ever watchful for unseen threats. Tessa burst through the door before Owen reached the steps, her sweatshirt hanging loose, eyes wide with a storm of relief and worry. "Dad, what happened, all these bikes?" She trailed off, gaze flicking to the gathered riders, their presence a wall of weathered solidarity. Owen pulled her into a quick hug, the scent of her vanilla shampoo grounding him amid the road's lingering exhaust. "It's handled for now, kid. Talk to the boy. Got the truth out. No more shadows over you." He guided her back inside, the screen door slapping shut behind them, leaving the crew's murmurs faint outside. In the kitchen, sunlight slanted through the blinds, dusting the table with checkerboard patterns. Owen poured her a glass of water from the pitcher, the ice clinking like distant chimes, and sat her down. Jake admitted it. The drinks, the pushing, they weren't alone in it. His dad's been covering for a pattern, Tessa. Not just him, but others. Powerful ones. Her hands trembled around the glass, water rippling, but she lifted her chin, the fear hardening into resolve. The same spark Owen had seen in her mother years back, before life wore it thin. So what now? They can't just get away with it? Owen shook his head, pulling a chair close, his knees brushing hers. The tattoos on his arms caught the light, the serpent seeming to coil tighter. They won't. Crew's here to back it. We're taking it to the school board first. Clean, official. Jake's gonna speak up, name names. If the sheriff drags feet, we go higher, public. No more hiding behind badges. Tessa's eyes searched his, the weight of his words sinking in. The Iron Promise. They're like family to you, right? From before Mom? Owen nodded, a rare softness cracking his voice. Chosen family. Swore an oath long ago, in places that tested souls. Big Mike, he was the one who taught me promises aren't paper. They're what you ride through hell for. This, it's for you, but it's bigger. keeping the innocent from the wolves. Outside, the crew shifted, sensing the moment's intimacy. Jax wandered the yard, kicking at weeds, while Rusty shared a quiet story with a younger rider, laughter low and brief, a ritual to ease the tension. But Owen knew the respite was fleeting. Harlan wouldn't yield easy. As Tessa absorbed his words, a tentative smile breaking through, Owen's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stay out, Parker, or the girl pays." The threat landed cold, no bluff in its brevity, stirring the old instincts honed in foxholes. He pocketed it without a word to Tessa, not yet, but the fire in his gut flared. This wasn't just paternal, it was war on the corruption that festered in Willow Creek's veins, preying on trust like a thief in the night. Rising, Owen stepped to the door, gesturing the crew in. They filed through, filling the small space with the scent of leather and road dust, respectful nods to Tessa as she stood shyly by the counter. Jax clapped Owen's shoulder. "House looks good, brother. Feels like home." Introductions followed, brief, warm, Lena offering Tessa a genuine smile. "Heard you're tough. Takes one to text the cavalry." Laughter rippled, lightening the air, but Owen cut to purpose. "Got a snag. Harlan circling. Threat just came in." He showed the phone, the group leaning in, faces hardening. Rusty cursed under his breath. "Classic bully move. We ride to the station next. Corner the sheriff before he corners us." Lena nodded. "And I can vouch for patterns like this. Seen it in ERs, girls too scared to speak. We document, protect witnesses." The plan formed around the table, voices overlapping in measured cadence, maps sketched on napkins, routes plotted under the kitchen's humble light. Tessa watched, included now, her input on school faces adding threads to the net. Owen felt the shift, the house transforming from sanctuary to command post, the iron promise breathing life into walls that had stood silent too long. Memories surfaced unbidden, a desert night, Mike's voice gravelly over shared whiskey. "Loyalty's the chain that holds when all else breaks, Sledge. Choose your links wise." Owen had chosen well. These riders, this daughter, the promise binding them against the tide. As the sun dipped toward afternoon, casting elongated shadows across the floor, Owen stood, the decision settling like dust after a ride. "We move at dusk. Station first, then the board meeting tomorrow. Quiet thunder. Truth over fists." The crew murmured agreement, rising as one. The bond palpable. A family forged not in blood, but in the fire of standing firm. Tessa hugged him again, whispering, "I'm not scared anymore. With you, with them, I feel it." Owen held her gaze. The weight of her trust, a crown heavier than any mare's. Outside, engines stirred to life once more, the rumble vibrating through the bones of the house. They mounted up, Owen last, pausing on the porch to watch Tessa wave from the door, stronger now, the light in her eyes a beacon against encroaching dusk. The convoy pulled away, tires humming over pavement worn smooth by time, heading toward the sheriff's office on the town square, a squat brick building under a flag limp in the still air. Owen's thoughts raced ahead. The threat meant escalation, Harlan's desperation peeling back layers to reveal allies in uniform, deals cut in back rooms, but the promise held, unbreakable, carrying them forward. In the fading light, Willow Creek's facade cracked wider, the moral storm brewing, not of violence, but of reckonings long overdue. Owen throttled up, wind whipping his face, the road a vein pulsing with purpose. For Tessa, for Mike, for the honor that defined them, the ride continued, deeper into the heart of the fight. Dusk draped Willow Creek in a veil of bruised purple, the sun's last embers bleeding into the horizon as the Iron Promise convoy rumbled toward the town square. Street lamps flickered to life one by one, casting pools of amber light that danced across the bike's chrome like hesitant fireflies. Owen rode point, the wind cooling against his sweat-dampened skin, carrying the faint metallic tang of impending rain. The sheriff's office squatted at the square's edge, a low brick bunker with a flagpole stark against the fading sky, its stars and stripes hanging limp in the still air. The threat text burned in his pocket like a live coal. Harlan's desperation a clear signal. The web was tightening, and they were walking right into its strands. But Owen's resolve was iron, forged in the heat of old oaths. The crew's engines a chorus, affirming that loyalty didn't bend to shadows. They pulled up in a disciplined arc, tires whispering to a halt on the worn pavement, the sudden silence amplifying the distant hum of crickets and the soft creak of cooling metal. Jax killed his engine beside Owen, dismounting with a glance that said everything. No words needed among brothers who'd shared foxholes and funerals. The group numbered 20, a quiet force in leathers and faded patches, faces illuminated by the office's harsh fluorescent glow spilling from the windows. Rusty scanned the parked patrol cars, empty and ominous, while Lena adjusted her gloves, her medic's kit slung low like a talisman. Tessa's face lingered in Owen's mind, her tentative smile from the porch, the trust he'd vowed never to break, pushing him forward. This wasn't vengeance, it was the slow grind of truth against corruption, a promise kept in measured steps. Owen led the way up the concrete steps, boots echoing like deliberate heartbeats, the glass door reflecting their approach as a distorted phalanx. Inside, the air was stale with coffee grounds and printer ink, fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead like trapped wasps. Deputy Ellis, a lanky figure with a mustache that drooped like wilted fern, looked up from the dispatch desk, his eyes widening at the influx. "Evening, folks. Station's closing soon. What brings the parade?" His tone carried the oily slide of authority, feigning neutrality. But Owen caught the flicker, recognition of the cooters, the subtle shift toward a radio on the desk. Jax hung back by the door, a sentinel, while the crew spread out, filling the lobby without crowding, their presence a weight that pressed against the walls. "I'm Owen Parker," he said, voice level as a horizon line. Stepping to the counter. "Hear about my daughter and Mayor Harlan's boy. We need the sheriff." Ellis's fingers drummed once, a tell of nerves, before he buzzed the inner office. "Boss, got visitors, the biker type." A muffled response crackled, and the door swung open. Sheriff Tate emerged, broad-shouldered in khaki that strained at the seams, his badge glinting under the lights like a false promise. Mid-50s, with a face weathered by backroom deals more than road dust, he eyed Owen with the calculation of a card shark spotting an ace. "Parker, heard about the prom ruckus. Harlan called, said you're stirring trouble. What's this about?" Owen didn't flinch, leaning on the counter, the wood cool under his palms. "Not trouble. Truth. Your deputy's been at those parties, Tate, looking the other way when things turn wrong. Jake Harlan spilled it, spiked drinks, grabs in the shadows, girls walking away marked by fear. You know the pattern. You've covered it." The words hung, precise as a blade's edge, drawing a hush from the crew. Tate's jaw set, but his eyes darted to Ellis, a silent command to stay put. "Allegations from a kid under pressure? That's thin, Parker. Mayor's a pillar here. You roll in with your gang, thinking you can play vigilante? This town's got laws." Lena stepped forward, her voice calm, cutting through like a scalpel. "Laws that protect the vulnerable, Sheriff. I've patched up enough in ERs to know when reports vanish. Patterns don't lie." The sheriff's hand rested on his belt, near the holster, not drawing, but a posture of control, the air thickening with unspoken threats. Owen felt the old pull, the instinct from desert nights where authority twisted into chains. Big Mike's voice a ghost in his ear. "Truth's the only weapon that doesn't rust, Sledge. Wield it steady." He pulled out his phone, the screen's glow illuminating Jake's confession notes, names, dates, vague hints of supplies from out-of-town contacts tied to Harlan's donors. "Read it." Or we walk this to the state board tomorrow. Public. Every detail. Tate scanned the text, color draining from his face, the lobby's clock ticking louder in the standoff. Ellis shifted, sweat beading on his brow, the facade cracking under the weight of eyes that saw through it. Fine, Tate muttered, voice gravel over defeat, waving them into his office, a cramped space cluttered with files and faded commendations. The crew filtered in, filling chairs and leaning against walls, the room shrinking around them. Tate sank behind his desk, the chair groaning, and rubbed his temples. It's not black and white. Harlan's got pull. Campaigns, jobs for half the department. Those parties started small, boys testing limits. I warned them, but favors pile up. The admission seeped out, halting, each word a concession to the moral tide Owen's presence represented. Jax crossed his arms, silent judgment in his stance, while Rusty nodded subtly, understanding the trap without excusing it. Owen pressed, voice unyielding. Warnings aren't enough when girls like my Tessa pay the price. You stand down the cover-ups. Testimonies go forward clean, no interference, or the promise rides this story statewide. Tate leaned back, the fight ebbing from his eyes, replaced by the weariness of a man caught in his own web. All right, I'll pull files, old complaints that got buried. Ellis here'll back Jake's statement at the board, but Harlan, he'll fight dirty. The sheriff's gaze met Owen's, a spark of reluctant respect flickering. You're stirring a hornet's nest, Parker, for what? One night? Owen's response was quiet thunder. For every night, for the promises we make to our own, the ones that hold when everything else folds. My crew, family chosen. We ride for that. The room absorbed the words, the crew's nods, a ripple of solidarity, Lena's hand briefly on Owen's shoulder, an anchor in the tension. They emerged into the night as stars pricked the velvet sky, the air cooler now, laced with the promise of rain. Engines roared back to life, the convoy pulling away from the station, headlights carving paths through the dark. Owen rode last, glancing back at the brick facade, shrinking in the mirrors, another thread severed, but the web pulsed stronger. Harlan's desperation likely brewing retaliation. His phone stayed silent, but the threat loomed, a shadow on the road ahead. Thoughts turned to Tessa, safe at home, and the board meeting at dawn, a public reckoning where truths would clash like chrome on asphalt. The crew thundered on, bonds tightening in the shared purpose, Mike's oath alive in every mile. Willow Creek's secrets unraveled further, the moral storm cresting, pulling Owen deeper into the fight for honor's quiet victory. The rain began as scattered drops, cool against his face, washing away the dust of confrontation, but not the fire within. Rain pattered against the windshields like hesitant applause as the Iron Promise convoy wound through Willow Creek's rain-slicked streets, the night fully cloaked now in a shroud of mist and shadow. Owen rode in the rear, the cool drops stinging his face, mixing with the salt of resolve, etched into his skin. The sheriff's reluctant concessions echoed in his mind, files promised, testimonies unchained. But the threat text lingered like a thorn, Harlan's empire cornered and snarling. Streetlights blurred into golden halos, reflecting off puddles that mirrored the crew's determined faces. Jax glanced back once, a nod through the downpour affirming the unspoken. The ride wasn't over. Dawn would bring the final push, where words would clash like thunder against the mayor's polished lies. They dispersed at the old mill road, engines fading to whispers as riders peeled off toward motels and garages, the bond holding them like invisible chains. Owen soloed home, the Harley cutting through the storm's building fury, tires hissing on wet asphalt. The ranch house glowed faintly ahead, a beacon in the chaos. Tessa's silhouette in the window like a fragile flame. He pulled into the driveway, water sluicing off his leathers as he killed the engine, the sudden quiet broken only by the relentless drum on the roof. Stepping onto the porch, he shook off the rain, the wood creaking under his weight. The door opened before he could turn the knob. Tessa framed in the light, her eyes searching his drenched form. "Dad, you're soaked. Come in. The crew okay?" Owen stepped inside, the warmth of the house wrapping around him like an old blanket. The scent of fresh tea brewing on the stove, chasing away the night's chill. He peeled off his cutter, hanging it by the door, droplets pooling on the mat. Crews solid, sheriffs cracking, admitted to burying complaints. "We've got momentum for tomorrow's board meeting." Tessa handed him a towel, her touch light but steady, the fear from Prom now tempered into quiet strength. They settled at the kitchen table, steam rising from mugs of chamomile. The rain a steady backdrop like a world washing itself clean. Owen recounted the station standoff, the deputy's sweat, Tate's weary confessions, omitting the threat to spare her worry. Jake's statement will back it, patterns exposed, the parties, the covers, Harlan can't hide forever. She nodded, fingers tracing the mug's rim, the porcelain warm under her skin. "I was so scared that night, Dad, but you came, and now, all this, for me?" Owen reached across, his calloused hand enveloping hers. "The tattoos, a map of battles won and lost. Not just for you, kid. For the promise I made long ago, to Big Mike, to the crew, to keep standing when the powerful prey on the small. Iron promise is family we choose, oaths that outlast the storms." Tessa's eyes glistened, not with tears, but the dawn of understanding, the weight of legacy settling gently. They talked late, voices low over the rain's rhythm, rebuilding the trust frayed by shadows. Sleep came fitful for Owen on the couch, dreams tangled with desert sands and roaring engines, Mike's grin fading into Tessa's smile. Dawn broke grey and sodden, the storm's remnants dripping from eaves as Owen geared up again, the cutter dry but carrying the night's resolve. The crew reconvened at the mill. 20 bikes, gleaming wet under overcast skies, exhaust mingling with mist like breath in cold air. Jax clapped Owen's back, the group mounting up in unison, the thunder of departure rolling toward the school, a modest brick hall on the town's edge, where the board meeting convened in a gymnasium, still echoing faint Prom ghosts. They arrived as the clock struck 8, parking in neat rows, the rumble fading to purposeful steps. Inside, the air hummed with fluorescent hum and murmured agendas, board members in suits flanking a long table, parents and teachers scattered in folding chairs. Mayor Harlan sat front row, silver hair impeccable, his smile a mask over simmering fury, Jake absent but his shadow looming. Owen entered last, the crew filling the back rows like a silent jury, leathers creaking softly. Whispers rippled. "Bikers, what's this?" But the chairman called order, gavel sharp as a starter's pistol. Harlan rose first, voice smooth as oiled chrome. "This meeting's for budget talk, not theatrics. Rumors about my son are baseless. Teenage hijinks twisted by grudge holders." His eyes locked on Owen, a veiled challenge, the room's tension coiling like a spring. But Owen stood, voice carrying clear and unyielding, the weight of the crew behind him a palpable force. "Not rumors. Truth. My daughter Tessa was cornered at Prom, touched without consent, drinks tampered. Jake confessed. A pattern, protected by influence. Sheriff Tate's files confirm buried reports, girls scared silent, parties turned traps. Willow Creek deserves better than shadows under spotlights." Gasps rippled, the board shifting uneasily as Owen laid out the evidence. Phone notes, Tate's promised documents slid across the table by a nervous deputy in the corner. Harlan blustered, face reddening like brake lights. "Lies! Fabrications from outlaws!" But Lena rose then, her medic's poise cutting through. "I've treated the aftermath, bruises hidden, fears unspoken. This isn't isolated, it's systemic." Parents murmured agreement, one mother standing, "My girl too. Last summer's lake party, we were told to drop it." The tide turned, Harlan's allies faltering, his empire cracking under the light of shared stories. The chairman adjourned for deliberation, but the verdict hung inevitable. Investigation launched. Harlan sidelined pending review, Jake to face school discipline and counseling. Outside, as the crew gathered under drizzling skies, Harlan stormed past, venom in his glare, but Owen met it steady. "It's over, Harlan. Justice rolls quiet, but sure." The mayor spat words like gravel, "You'll regret this," but drove off, tires spinning mud, his power deflated. Back home, Tessa waited on the porch, the sun breaking through clouds in hesitant rays. Owen dismounted, the crew waving farewells, Jax's parting grin a seal on the bond renewed. Father and daughter embraced, the air fresh with petrichor and possibility. "You did it, Dad. Changed everything." Owen pulled back, eyes tracing her face, whole, unbroken. "We did. Promise kept." In the quiet that followed, Owen sat with his coffee, watching Tessa laugh on a call with friends, the house alive with light. Mike's oath echoed, fulfilled not in glory, but in the small victories that mended worlds. The iron promise rode on, scattered but unbreakable, a family woven from roads and redemption. Willow Creek breathed freer, shadows receding under the weight of honor's steady thunder. Owen smiled into the horizon, the engine of life idling content, ready for whatever path lay next. Thank you for riding this journey with us. Stories like Owen's remind us of the promises that bind us. If it touched your soul, hit subscribe and join the crew for more tales of quiet courage and unbreakable bonds.